time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
When you're struggling a little bit at the plate, you get into the mindset of trying to put the ball in play a little bit more than taking your best swing. And I think we got to take our best swing. I think bottom line is this is an offense that, scores runs by doing damage, extra base hits. And, right now, if we're not getting the free pass that we try to get, we got to be able to hit our way home. And right now we're just not doing that.
Well, it's no different than the other programs. I was probably shouldn't confess, but during the board meeting today, I was tracking our women's golf run at the championship, and I was also tracking beach volleyball, and I was tracking women's tennis. So I was all the sports count. Hopefully we can get back on track and be a force to be reckoned with in baseball.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Friday night from downtown Columbia. Hope everybody's had a great day and looking forward to a very big weekend. Phil Kornbluth and Will Pelagic here. Professor Tom Hayes has the early start to the weekend. And our phone number, 800-956-7266, if you'd like to join in. Our email, talkback@sportstalksc.com, on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. What are you doing to the damn microphone?
What? I'm not doing anything.
Can you just let it sit?
I'm not doing anything.
It makes all kind of noise.
I'm just
relax.
You can't hear the noise that the microphone is making.
It's giving me a headache. And of course, on Twitter, our Periscope, you can watch us live there and shoot us a message via our Periscope. All right, go ahead. You act like you got to say something.
No. I was laughing at what Ray Tanner had to say about how he was checking every other sport. And I said, that's not anything wrong with Ray Tanner. That's more of a testament to just how boring those SC board meetings are.
Yeah, you were over there for the latter part. You caught up with Ray for a few minutes.
Yeah, and got a little bit of a window into the world that were the motions that passed today from the Board of Trustees. A couple of minor motions that involve the assistant coaches of football. Basically, anybody who's on a multi-year football assistant contract will be allowed to go to another school and be a head coach without having to pay the buyout that is in their contract. That's an amendment that's in their contract. Ray went into a little bit of that in detail, more with us in our conversation, which will air here in a couple of minutes. One big item is that Dawn Staley has a little bit of a sweetener now in her contract. She will get, if she is still the head coach at South Carolina by the year 2022, which basically is the final year of her current contract, she will get an additional $1.5 million, basically known as a longevity incentive-laden bonus. They're going to put $300,000 a year basically into a trust fund to basically have it sit there, and she can collect it at the end of that period of time if she is still the Gamecocks head coach. Also, one-year contract extensions for Chuck Martin and Perry Clark on the men's side, and a little bit of a raise as well for women's associate head coach Lisa Boyer. And also an update on what's going on with the football facility for South Carolina. The football operations building should be completed in December. The Gamecock football team is probably going to be playing if they have a good season in December or January. So they plan, if they are in a bowl this season, to move into that building fully first of next year.
All right, Clemson and Wake Forest underway in their baseball game in Winston-Salem, top of the first. Tigers have already scored. They are up 1-0. Davidson with a triple down the first base line for an RBI. So the Tigers are up early 1-0 at Wake Forest. It'll be South Carolina and LSU tonight, a weekend series in Columbia. Let's just say it is, in terms of everything out there for the USC baseball team, it's must-win time. They have only won 2 SEC baseball series. Well, let's see. Let me back that up. 3 SEC baseball series in the last 2 seasons, this season and last year. The first 2 of last year. They've won 1 series this year. They are in the basement of the SEC East. They are looking at having to play a play-in round of the SEC tournament. They're looking at missing the NCAA tournament and, of course, not hosting. It's hard to believe. I was just looking back at some things today. It was only 2016, the 2016 season, when the Gamecocks were in a super regional.
It's crazy.
They're only, that little removed from being almost back in Omaha. And here they are, scrambling for everything they can get this year. And they have to face, of course, one of the traditional powers in LSU. But an LSU team that has some warts itself, they were defeated by Tulane midweek this week.
And it's weird, when you think about LSU having what would be considered, I don't want to say a down year, but a lesser than expected year for Paul Maneri's ball club. They're 24-14 and still second place in the SEC West. I think Gamecock fans would love the inverse of that if they could maybe have that happen. So it just shows you just how far South Carolina has fallen, and even how a season like this at LSU would be probably considered also still a tad unacceptable at South Carolina. And I think the one thing that South Carolina has to kind of put its foot on is the fact that they are at home. The opportunities here are becoming fewer and further between. And I don't know if you can really even look at postseason right now as a goal. You just kind of have to play what's in front of you and see if you can get any kind of positive momentum and positive feeling out of this. Because right now, if you look at the rest of this schedule for South Carolina, it's not favorable.
Yeah, especially after watching Missouri beat Vanderbilt last night.
They were pretty
at
strong.
Mizzou.
They were pretty
Anybody
strong.
go to that game? Did they even know they were playing that game in Columbia, Missouri?
Here's the thing about baseball attendance. It is not anywhere close to the cultural significance that it is in the SEC there. And I think, so much of what they've been trying to do is build that back up. They've tried basically everything. They've renovated that building. They've got, alcohol-friendly seats now. They've got different things that they're trying to do with the fans. It's just hard with the weather up there being what it is during the SEC baseball season. Short of putting a dome in that building, it's going to be very, very hard to draw fans unless you get the kinds of prospects that they had when they were in their Big 12 heyday, i.e. having Friday night starters like Max Scherzer on the mound and people of that nature.
Going back to LSU, one thing about LSU, it can still rake. Duplantis is hitting 364. Broussard is hitting 345. Watson is hitting 336. As a team, they're batting 296. They're excellent in the field, only 26 errors in their 38 games so far. Their ERA, maybe not what they normally like it to be from a team standpoint, at 3.92. The pitching matchup, USC is going to stick with the same rotation that it had last weekend when it went on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday schedule. So Logan Chapman will start tonight. He'll face Zach Hess, who is 6-3, 3.71. So the Gamecocks really need to win tonight, because Saturday they face McKill Hilliard, a freshman who is 7-2 with a 1.75 ERA. Of course, Adam Hill will be pitching, and that gives the Gamecocks an excellent chance. But lose tonight, you face a guy with a 1.75 on Saturday. That's tough.
Well, it's tough, but here's the other thing that I guess works to South Carolina's, I don't want to say advantage, it works in their favor, is the fact that for the first time to start an SEC series, they will be at what is considered as close to full strength for them as possible. They will have Noah Campbell leading off in their batting order. They will have Madison Stokes hitting third and playing first base. They will have LT Tolbert in the lineup. They'll have TJ Hopkins in the lineup, and Justin Rowe, who's been their strongest hitter when they've had this attrition with their lineup, so to speak. So there really are no more excuses right now for South Carolina. You have everybody back that you had basically projected to be in there. You have your two best pitchers going on the weekend. You have Chapman, who basically gave you every chance to win last week against number 3 Arkansas. It's put up or shut up time right now for the Gamecocks.
Let's go back to Clemson. There was a change in a decision. Davidson did not get a triple. They ruled that now a double down the first base line. So they put Meredith back on third. Okay, that's fine. Seth Beer came up. He singled through the right side. That drove in 2 runs. Tigers now lead at 2-0 over Wake Forest, but Beer gets the 2 RBIs. Davidson loses an RBI, and that's fine as far as Clemson is concerned. They get the 2 runs, and they're up 2-0.
Red Stripe, hooray, Beer.
Yes.
Yes, hooray, Beer.
All right, we're going to hear from Ray Tanner coming up. Are you writing his material, Brian? I'm wondering where he's getting that from. Ray Tanner coming up after the break. We'll hear from him. Mike Morgan will be here. We'll talk golf with George, racing with Monty, and recruiting. Be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. The place you want to be on a Friday night for everything that's going on. We got racing at Richmond. Qualifying is underway there. We'll update that for you in just a little bit. We've got the golf tournament going on down in San Antonio. We'll be talking golf at George Bryan in the second hour. We've got USC and Clemson teams involved in conference golf tournaments. USC women in the SEC tournament and Clemson in the ACC tournament. We'll get you an update on that here in just a little bit. We're on commitment watch for Clemson for defensive back Sheridan Jones out of Norfolk, Virginia. He's got a 7 o'clock announcement. We're watching that for you. We do all this, and you know what? We do it for free. We do it because we are your servants in the world of sports. That's why you come to us to be served every night here between 6 and 8.
You don't do it for free.
Doesn't cost you to listen.
We give it to them for free, but we don't do it for free.
We do it for nothing.
We serve.
In the grand scheme of things, we do it for nothing.
We serve the people at no cost to them, but we do get something for it. Eventually.
We get a gold watch and a pat on the back.
Eventually, we get something. I don't know how that works yet. at this company, but we eventually do get something.
Well, what I'm telling the people is it's free to them.
It is free to them.
And by the way, speaking of golf, USC women have won the SEC Women's Golf Championship this afternoon. They finish 5 shots ahead of Alabama, a round of 285 today. This was being played in Birmingham. So take that, Crimson Tide, right in your own backyard.
Are we allowed?
Stuck it right up in there.
Are we allowed to congratulate them?
Go ahead. You go right ahead.
Congratulations to the USC women's golf team.
And thank you for everything. And I mean, those aren't our tears. Those are your tears, USC women golf. Alabama finished 5 shots back. Arkansas was 8 shots back. Then Georgia. LSU, mighty LSU finished dead last. Okay, so don't come messing with the golf sticks and the South Carolina women. They're very good. And tell you who did what for South Carolina today. We're going to get to Ray Tanner. I know he's proud of them winning this.
He was following
this championship.
He was following them on his phone apparently.
Oh yeah. Listen, they've got a lot of good things going on. And they've got the low scorer for South Carolina was Anhoa Oira. Please don't ask me to pronounce these names. Anhoa Olara. She finishes at 209, and she tied for first. Looks like she tied for medalist honors. Lois Gayko finished next for USC at 9th overall at 218. So anyway, they advance, of course, to the NCAA regionals coming up in a couple of weeks. So congratulations to the USC women. Thank you for everything and everything else. What you got from Ray?
Ray Tanner, I basically started by asking him about the motions involving the football assistant coaches. They are now permitted to leave USC if they take a head coaching job at another school and not have to pay a buyout. I asked him why this was the case.
Just a formality. The question came up, I guess a couple months back from one of the assistants, and speaking to our legal counsel and the president, we said, let's make it, formal, but a part of their contract.
I know that you said earlier today about Brian Bowen that we're on the NCAA's timeline, and I know that it's something that you're still working through. How confident are you that he plays with South Carolina?
Well, that's a very difficult question. My understanding is he's going to test the waters to see what the NBA executives, general managers, coaches think about his future, and that part of his decision-making process. But I'm confident that, he sat out, that should we go through the process and he doesn't become a professional, there could be a point in time that he could play basketball here. But again, just like Chris Silva, he's testing the waters.
I know you said this also earlier today about the possible review between the incidents that took place between you guys in Missouri earlier this year. Is that still forthcoming?
Yes, as Commissioner Sankey indicated in the release, if you go back when he did a release and about the incident, he said he would send a team in to scrub our procedure for game operations, and they'll be coming early May. The date's been set, and we're certainly prepared for that.
What are you looking for as far as a resolution there?
I don't know that I can't speak to any sort of resolution. They just are inquiring from the SEC office about our protocol and how we handle a basketball game. And so we'll go through the process with them.
It is a big baseball weekend, though there's been some disappointing losses. Is there a level of concern amongst you, just kind of where the program's at right now?
Well, it's been I know Coach Kingston's been very disappointed with a lot of close losses. We've been in some situations, especially in the league, where we could have won some series and some really close games. And we've got 15 left, 9 of them are at home, and I know we'll have good crowds this weekend. So I think we're, in a position for some good things to happen. It's very difficult. This is a hard league, and I hope we can finish strong.
Is this a program that, I don't want to say you treat it differently because of how close you are to it, but how personally do you take the way the baseball program operates here?
Well, it's no different than the other programs. I was I probably shouldn't confess, but during the board meeting today, I was tracking our women's golf run at the championship, and I was also tracking beach volleyball, and I was tracking women's tennis. So I was all the sports count. Hopefully we can get back on track and be a force to be reckoned with in baseball.
But here's the thing: anytime you have an athletic director who was a coach at the school for a particular program, you know that they're going to have a particular vested interest in the success of that program, given, of course, what Ray Tanner has put on that wall. And that's, I kind of think, the thing where it's like I almost expected him to be a little bit more stern in that regard. But again, I don't know what you have to do in order to get past whatever rut they are in right now. I don't know if it's more of just, trying to cycle through and cycle out some of the bad habits, and I don't want to say bad apples, because again, I think these guys all had talent at one point or another. It's just not being put to good use.
Well, first of all, he's not going to say anything or indicate anything about being concerned about Mark Kingston. That's his hire. He's riding with him. It's his first year, not even, just about 2/3 of the way through it. Baseball's a funny sport. You can get hot at any time. They're 6-9. Let's say they can somehow manage to win this series against LSU. As he mentioned, they've got 9 SEC home games left. If they could go like 6-3 in this stretch of home games in the SEC, that could get them up and win a couple of these, maybe a series on the road, do some damage on the road. They could end up around 500, but they got to get started now. I mean, the season is quickly slipping away from them, and losing a game at home to a Presbyterian is unacceptable for them. Yeah, in their eyes, it's unacceptable, and Mark Kingston said so as much. But it happened, and it's because you didn't come up with the clutch hit. You didn't get good enough pitching from the 4 freshmen you trotted out there, and it's just a combination of things. But they have played well enough, and they've pitched well enough at times. When they've pitched well at times, they haven't gotten the hitting. When they've hit well at times, they haven't gotten the pitching. It just hasn't come together for them in a package on a regular basis.
And Mark Kingston, I mean, he's an impressive talker, and he's an impressive guy when it comes to planning. But, I mean, in my mind, the time for talk is over. You have to have some results. You have to have some actions. I'm not saying you got to go out and win out. I'm not saying you got to win every series, but you've got to give me some reason to believe that this program is going to take the next step further in the seasons to come, rather than have more of the same that happened last year under the final season of Chad Holbrook. I mean, I don't want to necessarily say that this is almost this might be the final year of Chad Holbrook because of the way that this gateway's looked at how similar it's looked to last season. But in my mind, you need to give me some semblance of that this is different and things are different.
Well, the South Carolina baseball job is of a level where, even though it's your first year, there really is no honeymoon.
No.
The fans expect to win, and they want to win, and they really don't accept anything less. And that's the way it should be, because the USC baseball program had become the crown jewel of USC athletics, and some of that shine now has come off over the last couple of years. Back in a moment. Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, a very busy Friday evening. Mike Morgan coming up in a moment. Let me update a couple things. Clemson up on Wake Forest at 2-1. I thought Clemson just scored a third run on a wild pitch. They sent him back to third base. They got the bases loaded, 2-1 Tigers in the top of the second.
We got those crazy, Winston-Salem rules. Who knows?
Something crazy is going on there. Martin Truex Jr. wins the pole at Richmond, 123.859. More on that coming up with Monty Dutton and the full Monty on NASCAR. We'll update more college baseball for you as well around the state and around the SEC and the ACC. And, of course, 7 o'clock, looking at a potential commitment announcement from Sheridan Jones for Clemson out of Virginia. Keep a watch on that for you. Right now, though, let's welcome in for another edition of Morgan on the Move here on Sports Talk. He's really been on the move this week. He's out in California to call a game on ESPNU tomorrow, the Dirtbags and Fullerton States. And more on that from Mike in just a moment, as Mike is brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union, where their mortgage team is more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process. Visit foundersfcu.com/mortgage to apply today. And by BP Skinner Clothiers. People nationwide get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner. Very best in suits, shirts, pants, shoes, and more are available to you. They are located right in the Vista in downtown Columbia with a terrific showroom, or you can check them out online at bpskinnerclothiers.com. Mike is with us now. Before we get to the college baseball, the original purpose of this portion of our program was to do a Braves report. And of course, the Braves have been so insignificant in recent years, we've sort of forgotten about it. But now that they are munching on the Mets and having a good month, let's talk about them. What is going on with the Braves?
There's rumors that if they continue to be relevant, the Braves report could make a comeback next year. Just saying, that's through the grapevine. That's what I've heard through various sources. But no, I mean, they're playing carefree because there's no expectations on them. They know that the future is really next year. I think they'll be active in the free agent market. Some of these young players will be weeded out, and they'll figure out which ones can play at this level and which ones cannot. And we haven't even seen Ronald Acuna yet, who's most people's pick for National League Rookie of the Year. But they just had just some kind of uncommon and unexpected type of performances. Guys like Preston Tucker, who I think at last check was leading the league in runs batted in. I mean, he was barely expected to make the roster. They've gotten some good pitching. Everybody knows about Freddie Freeman, but Sean Newcomb, for example, who's going tonight, I mean, that's a young man who's had the great potential for a while. He came over in the Andrelton Simmons deal. He's finally coming through. Dansby Swanson, who didn't look like he could hit the baseball at all last year, is hitting well over 300. Ryan Flaherty, a journeyman, is hitting over 300 right now. And Ozzie Albies, remember that name because he is the second baseman of the future. And he's going to be there a long, long time. He kind of got buried in all the press clippings of guys like Swanson, but Albies might be the best young player on this team right now. He's a special-looking second baseman. So when you add all that up, they've overachieved. Do I think they'll keep it up? Not really. I think at best this is a 500 team, but for now it's a great story.
It's interesting, Mike, and I'll be making my Battery debut this weekend, but it's interesting to kind of see how the development of that area almost kind of mirrors the development for the team. And if you think about the fact that next year will be the third year in the ballpark and everything in the Battery should be done by then, that's basically setting up a destination for baseball in the Southeast now, not only from the fan standpoint, but also from the baseball quality standpoint.
Yeah, and here's a little tidbit for your audience. Does anybody there in the studio know who owns the Battery? Who owns all those restaurants and bars and shops?
I don't.
Okay. The Braves do.
No.
The Braves, this is a brilliant, calculated financial move. They are basically landlords. So all those restaurants and bars, if you haven't been to the Battery, it's pretty impressive. They all pay rent to the Atlanta Braves. So, and those cash registers keep going all year long, not just during baseball season. It's kind of the model of the future for a lot of pro franchises. If you can own all that business property around you and profit off that as well as what goes on inside the stadium, that's a win-win. So when I found that out, I was already convinced it was a wise move for a number of reasons to move the stadium from one spot of the city to another. That's just the icing on the cake right there. So it is a great setup. You'll enjoy your time there, no doubt about that. And I think the product on the field is only going to get better in the next couple of years. If we've learned nothing from the last few years of Major League Baseball, whether it's the Cubs, whether it's the Astros, the formula is to be really bad for a few years before you can get really good. It's not to just sit there and be mired in the middle for a 10-year span. And the Braves went through the really bad period, and now I think they're on their way back up.
Visiting with Mike Morgan on the move here on Sports Talk. The Clemson game, 2-1. The reason they sent that runner back to third, actually, they took the run off the board. Clemson had second and third, one out. What looked like a wild pitch that would have led to a run, they ruled it to be a hit by pitch.
Oh, Davidson, yeah.
So they sent the runner to first, loaded the bases up, sent the runner home back to third, and then got a couple of outs. So Clemson did not get a run. That's two rulings that have led to runs coming off the board for Clemson. I imagine Monty Lee is chewing nails. You've seen LSU before this season. They're coming to Columbia to play the Gamecocks for the weekend beginning tonight. Just looking at their numbers, they got some great hitters once again. They've got a terrific defense. They don't make many errors. They got a freshman in the middle of their rotation who looks like he's lights out.
Yeah, I just had them on Sunday, actually. I had the Gamecock win over Arkansas Thursday night, and then went straight to Baton Rouge and called the walk-off that LSU had on Sunday to cap off a 3-game sweep at Tennessee. So it was my first look at LSU in person this year. I don't think they have the pitching that they did last year when you lose a first-rounder in Lang and You lose another guy like Poche. They're not quite as deep on the mound, particularly in the bullpen. Remember the Friday night starter that the Gamecocks will see in Zach Hess. He was their closer last year. He's the flame throwing right-hander who certainly has starter stuff. But by doing that, you sacrifice your bullpen a little bit. But the Gamecocks can keep it close and make it a battle of the bullpens. That's the best recipe in a lot of ways. But LSU offensively certainly can hit, and they're much like Carolina. They're now getting healthy as well. They've had some guys that have been out of the lineup for much of the year, so it's a team that seems to be hitting its stride. A team that certainly will be hungry to stay hot after winning 5 out of the last 6 in conference play, making it for a very challenging matchup for Carolina at home.
All right, got about 45 seconds. I made this comment earlier. Of course, you were as close as the USC baseball program as anybody when you were the play-by-play guy. And I said, it's a kind of a program where as a new coach, you don't really get a honeymoon because the expectations are so high. Is that a fair assessment about what Mark Kingston walked into at South Carolina and the uneasiness of the fans at this point, seeing their team just 3 games over 500?
It's not a fair assessment, but it's a real assessment. I think you speak the truth on how the fans look at it. But if you're going to be realistic about it, anybody who knew what that team was made of and what the program has done 2 out of the last 3 years, missing the postseason, not advancing past a regional, struggling with just overall. I don't think whoever the coach was going to be, whoever was going to get hired, nobody thought that was a team that was going to contend this year. No one. Mm-hmm. So you can have all the expectations you want, and you can kind of put your feet in the sand and say, we should be in Omaha every year. We should be doing this or that. That's fine. But the reality is that is not a roster that is full of talent that is worthy of competing for the SEC. It's just not. Mark Kingston's job will be to change that and to improve it in recruiting the next couple of years.
Okay, Mike, we'll be watching you tonight, or when are you on tonight? Tomorrow night?
Tonight, ESPNU at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock local here in beautiful Central California.
Setting my DVR right now.
Thank you, man. Enjoy. Be right back.
Shit,
I got to go back and correct something.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Okay, we're back with you. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, updating a couple things. Boy, I bet you Monty Lee right now, if he had a microphone on him, he'd be a pretty upset dude. So Clemson had a couple of runs. Well, they did, of course, get one of them back with that double. Had another run come off the board because of that change of the call. I guess we're having to watch it, just the video. We can't hear anything and follow the stat broadcast information. So I don't know exactly how it actually came down. I saw the run go up on the board, and I saw the guy go down to first base. But anyway, Wake Forest has come back off of Jacob Hennessy with 3 runs in the second. They're still batting. They have a 4-2 lead now on the Tigers in Winston-Salem.
I mean, it's just something about Jacob Hennessy where I hate to say it like this, but for a Friday night starter, he's been a tad unimpressive.
Well, Tigers are trailing 4-2, and Wake Forest has runners on and only 1 out. We'll update some other baseball here in just a moment. Let me go back and correct something. Doggone it. And I knew this. I just didn't think about it as I was talking because I was all caught up in wishing them well and thanking them for everything. USC has not won the women's SEC golf championship just yet. They were the winner of stroke play, but they advanced now to match play. They've got the same format they use in the NCAA tournament. So they move on to match play beginning tomorrow. USC will face off against Missouri in their opening round of match play.
Stephanie Priestmeyer's group. Gotta love that.
Okay, so that was a premature congratulatory comment on our behalf. So we take it back. We'll save it for when it actually is complete.
Right.
You want to comment about something on the message board or Twitter or something?
We have someone on our Twitter, our friend Lawrence, who is listening intently.
Is he really a friend? Is he truly a friend?
He's listening intently, so I'll call him a friend. He says that basically we were trying to say that Mark Kingston does not get a pass for this. I don't think we said that for the start that South Carolina is at. All I'm saying is I think you need to show us some evidence that things are going to be different and not exactly the same as they are now. And he says he's got 200 hitters, he's got 2 fine hurlers, and a lot of injuries. There's nearly not much that he can control. And all I'm saying is, yes, that is the case, but show a pulse against the teams in the state, man. I mean, that's the only thing I have to say.
I am saying that in terms of the people that support the program and the fans, you don't get a pass. It's USC baseball. It's a nationally elite program. Fans do not expect a drop-off, and the drop-off since the 2016 season has been very steep. It dropped off last year, yet, you know, as bad as it was last year by their standards, they really only missed the NCAA tournament by maybe 1 victory. You know, that run to the SEC semifinals helped them after a poor regular season. Had they won 1 more game, the word was 1 more game somewhere down the line, they would have gotten in. This team, at this point in time, is a long way away from getting into the NCAA tournament, barring a run to the SEC tournament championship.
Let me borrow a corollary from another sport. Remember when Indiana men's basketball lost to Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne? And basically that cost Tom Crean his job. I mean, basketball in Indiana is about as important to them as baseball is in South Carolina, especially to the South Carolina Gamecock program. So as much as of how this state is defined, it's defined by how the South Carolina baseball team is doing. Just like in Indiana, the basketball team, it's a basketball school, it's a basketball state.
You mean for USC? I mean, don't forget, Clemson's baseball program is every bit as strong, short of the national championships, but has every bit the passion and the fan following that South Carolina does, though it has a smaller facility.
Again, the thing about it, though, is that when losses like that happen, there are consequences. And not only are there consequences, but there are things that happen when it comes to the deterioration of support from a fan base. And I'm very, very curious to see what kind of turnout there's going to be at Founders Park tonight. I don't expect a very ambitious turnout because of just where the program is. You're only 3 games over 500 right now overall.
And here's the other thing I want to complain about too. May I?
Sure.
Why? I mean, why? I understand. okay, I can't say why and then I say I understand. I'm going to say why and I don't understand. I mean, like tomorrow, it's going to be a beautiful day all afternoon, right? They have to wait until 4 o'clock to start that game tomorrow, as they do now all SEC Saturday games for television.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you waste half of a beautiful Saturday afternoon because of television.
But they're not even on TV. They're on SEC Network Plus tomorrow.
That's not even an SEC Network game.
No.
Not even. Well, I mean, that's, to me, SEC Plus is still television. It's done for television purposes.
So it's just online, though.
Yeah, I don't know why they wait. I guess unless they're trying to, that's just the routine and the habit or whatever.
Must be a bandwidth issue or something. I don't know.
I don't know, but now it's 5-2 Wake Forest over Clemson. I mean, would you get more people out on a Saturday if you started at 1 o'clock and give people a chance after the game to go socialize in the Vista or go out to dinner? I mean, you are interrupting the evening plans on a Saturday night for people, I think.
Yeah, it's not on. The game is not on. It's just on Plus.
I just don't see the reason to waste half of a good afternoon for the simple purpose of getting on television, especially if it's only on computers.
Right.
It's not even on over-the-air television.
Again,
anyway, that's my complaint.
I don't disagree with you.
Recruiting here for a moment. Let's do that because I never complain about recruiting, and nobody complains about recruiting. Let's see. We're waiting on Sheridan Jones in Norfolk, Virginia. Apparently, it's sort of pointing towards Clemson for him over Ohio State. Cornerback.
Compass points toward the lake. Is that what you're saying?
Seems to be. This would be another big pickup for Clemson if it indeed comes to fruition. USC not going to take many receivers in this 2019 class. They've got one committed. I was looking at their roster. Barring anybody leaving early, they'll have 9 returning receivers on their roster in 2019. So you add the one commitment, that's 10. They might add one more, and they recently offered T.J. Jones of Lake City, Florida. They're new on the scene with him, so he said that the two are starting to get to know each other. They said they like him because he runs really good routes, and he catches the football. He had 30 catches, 9 touchdowns, around 900 yards last season. And he plans to visit South Carolina at some point. He took an official to Texas A&M last week. He's also been to Miami and South Florida unofficially. He said USC, Ole Miss, Louisville, Tennessee, Illinois, Oregon kind of stand out with him right now. Defensive back Shaheem Battle of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, was at Clemson last weekend. The Tigers are currently his #1 team. He will attend Tennessee spring game Saturday. He was offered today by LSU, Ohio State, Duke, North Carolina, NC State, Virginia, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and others are on his offer list. But right now, he is favoring Clemson after the visit. Mike Reed, Tigers cornerbacks coach, told him with the corners they're losing after this season, they need corners. And there's a chance for him to play early. So that's very important to him and something that's got his attention. He's also been to Duke, North Carolina, East Carolina, Wake Forest, and NC State. Coaches from NC State and Duke were in to see him this week. Emerald tight end Luke Deal is on his official visit to Ohio State this weekend. He's also been to Notre Dame, NC State, and Michigan, officially, unofficially to Clemson and Auburn. Defensive end Savion Jackson of Clayton, North Carolina, will not make it to USC for the cookout tomorrow. He went to NC State spring game. USC will be in his top group when he releases it. Auburn was in to see him Thursday. He has an official to USC set for June 2nd. Basketball, 6'7" Christian Brown of Lower Richland visited USC yesterday. He's had several coaches come in to see him this week, and he went over to see USC. Frank Martin was one of those in to see him this week. He and his mom made the visit over to USC, and he said everything went well. It was a chance for her to get to see everything in person as well. He is strong on both USC and Clemson at this point. Some of his other offers are UConn, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Auburn, Florida State, Florida, Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, and Kansas, among others. Top of the hour break, and we'll be back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, welcome back to Sports Talk, everybody. South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic from downtown Columbia. George Bryan III going to join us in just a moment. A wild and woolly one, and Winston